I probably lived here maybe about 30 years or so. Hello, my name is Robert Schaefer, and I've been doing artwork for probably about 25 years full time. And I had a very nice experience where I've gotten a chance to do the Slate Hill Elementary School here in Worthington. Very special project. It was definitely a joy to do, and I love working with children's ideas. I think I probably worked on it for about 3 weeks, over a 3-week period, but not full time. There's generations that are going to go through this, and more people will see it. And the fact that it's local just makes me pretty proud to be a part of that. To do something local and to actually feel that you made a difference is much more special than just doing it for a client who you're never going to see again, or just it's out there. But this is something that's for kids, and it's for Julie, it's for the people of this building that want to promote a nice feeling. And the fact that it's local makes it even more special for me, because at different times I can stop by and say, hey, how's everything going? Very nice people to work with. Local makes a difference, it really does. I suggested that, hey, you have a theme that's already on the wall of a mountain range. They just basically wanted to improve that because it's been there for so long. I like realism, and I suggested that I could do the entire space. They said, yeah, go for it, and it allows me to just work the entire space as part of a theme. Since the waterfall worked to solve the problem of the rock wall, I just kind of suggested that we bring it all the way up to the top of the ceiling, where it becomes a misty look, and that way the mountain looks like it just goes into the theme of the ceiling. It allows me to just take whatever's in the room. If there's doors, I can make something out of the doors. And you'll see if some of the doors disappear and some of them are standing out. It just depends on what we're doing with the space. It carries the star theme also, which was very important to Julie. Once a star, always a star is their theme. They wanted me to carry the stars to be kind of an elaborate theme into the concept. When you're trying to do a lot of stone and different textures, you can put 2 or 3 colors on a roller at the same time and smear it across the wall. It gives you an effect that looks kind of like you're almost done already. And then I just go back and shape it. So if you notice, like in the scene right now, you can see the rocks kind of have a brown tone to them, and then I just go back and shape them into what I want them to be. I've done a lot of things with plants, and they work really well with giving things dimension. And it worked out really special for me, because I've been doing so many themes, I never know what's next. It makes it exciting every day. It's not the same thing over and over again. And I've had a lot of children help me. I do a lot of daycare centers, or somebody might want to be included. I just give the kids a paintbrush and they get excited because they're part of it. If I can spark somebody, or a child, to do something like this, and I let them know that I've failed along the way many times, you have to get better at it. Even in school, you have to be able to successfully instill a child with the thought that they could do it, and then see what happens. You never know, and that's what it inspires me to inspire somebody else. It makes me happy to do that. Any of the children that came in here and I could see their expressions, it turns me on to the fact that, if they were to have an art class, they might be inspired by something like this. That makes me happy.
When they say someone's made the supreme sacrifice, that means they've died in service to their country. Those are the people who we celebrate on Memorial Day. But all veterans make sacrifices. And that's the important thing to remember. The number one thing that every veteran sacrifices is youth. So youth is a great time in your life, right? It's a time when hopefully you don't have a lot of responsibilities other than for yourself. You get to make a lot of choices. You have a lot of freedom to decide what you want to do with your lives. When you decide to serve in the armed forces, you give all that up, because now you belong to the nation, and the nation tells you what they need you to do. They tell you where you're going to sleep and when you're going to sleep, where you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat. They can deploy you around the world at any time. And so every veteran sacrifices that freedom, that opportunity to make choices for themselves. They sacrifice what some people consider to be the best part of their lives. So that's the kind of sacrifice that we think about on Veterans Day. The video games don't really have any resemblance to real life, right? They don't really There's no real connection between what happens in video games and what the actual military does. We brought you the real thing today so that you can interact with them and learn what life in the military is really like, what those sacrifices are really like.
Hello, I'm Randy Banks, Assistant Superintendent of Worthington Schools. Last year, our Community Task Force recommended that we address our 2 comprehensive high schools in Phase 2 of our Master Facilities Plan. In November, our community approved the funding for both of these projects. We are now inviting you to join us on December 1st at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium at Worthington Kilbourne High School, where we will share some initial concepts and possible designs for both buildings. We are hopeful that you will assist us in designing buildings that honor our rich history, yet meet the needs of our students in the future. We look forward to seeing you there on the 1st. Thank you.
It's now 7:30 and we're going to get started. This is the Worthington School District Board of Education meeting for November 16th, 2022. TJ, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Best.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Present.
Mrs. Hudson.
Present.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Present.
Mr. Wilson. Here.
Welcome, everyone. As I said, this is our regularly scheduled board meeting. My name is Amy Lloyd and I get to serve as this year's board president. To my far left is board member Kelly Davis, board member Jennifer Best, our treasurer TJ Kusick. To my far right is board vice president Charlie Wilson, board member Nikki Hudson, and superintendent Trent Bowers. You can please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. Our first item is approval of agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda of the regular Board of Education meeting, including the addendum that was sent out?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or deletions? Okay. TJ, can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Bless you.
Our next item on the agenda is board docs overview. TJ?
All right, good evening, everyone. So today or tonight we transition our board meeting agendas and minutes to an electronic retention process called Board Docs. Districts across the country using it. To be clear for the public, we're not changing any procedures or policies or process on how we do our board agendas. This is simply a change to an electronic mechanism to disperse them and retain them. So for the sake of our board today and for the public, I just want to walk through some things on how that will look. So you all have a username and password that I have given to you to log in. You don't need to do that, so you can access the public site on that. So if you go to our board page, right under board meeting information, it will take you to Board Docs. This is what the public sees, and quite frankly, as a board member, this is what you can use if you choose. You will see the featured meeting is our meeting here today, but you'll see as we put meetings in, they will all be archived here. You can easily click to our board policies. But if we go back to this meeting and click on it, you'll be able to see the agenda. You can print the agenda. When we publish the video and the minutes, they will be there archived as well. So a couple things to note. You'll see this goes exactly in order as our current agenda. The naming configuration might change a little bit. We have A, B, C, D, E, but for the most part, it will look the same. You'll be able to access uploaded documents through here. So rather than have a printed enclosure, it will be an enclosure in here. You will see our consent agenda as well through here, items of new business, and so on and so forth. What I did want to walk you through as board members is if you choose to log in to the back end site, you can click up here, choose login. It will take you here. You'll use your new username and password that I provided. Maybe. And it will take you here. And so I encourage you, I gave you a dummy password. You can come right up here, change your password so only you see that. The only difference really from your seat is when you navigate to this board meeting and you go to the agenda, you have this little bubble up here where you can make comments, right? So you can put comments that only you would see. So if you have notes about that item that you wanted to prepare, you can type them in here. You can save them, and then as you come back to that item, you can click on that and you can see that. So it gives you a working way to eliminate paper notes as you prepare for board meetings. Keep in mind that those would be subject to public records, just as they are now. Once they lose administrative value, though, you're free to delete them as you are with any record. So that's really it on the benefit of logging in. So like I said, it's up to you, your preference. The other thing that I want to show you is the search feature. So this will come in handy as we get down the line. And I should mention this: when you log in as a back-end user, you can click Meta. So you can search all of our meetings, all of our policies. So you want to, you can put a keyword in and see when something was approved. If you click Meta, it will search every district that uses board docs across the nation. So if you want to see policies, not just Worthington policies, but policies on any district, it becomes a valuable tool to use Meta. It does slow things down, so if you just want to use us, make sure you uncheck Meta. Really, the value I think we'll find in this is a year from now. Historically, as we're able to go back as board members and find things more easily, as administrators find things when they were approved more easily, I think you'll see a lot of value in that. But we'll build this from the ground up. We'll do these next few agendas in combination, and then we plan to go to all board docs in January. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. If I can't answer it, I can get you the answer for board docs.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm sure it will once we start using it a little more. But
yeah, and I think it'll be a trial process for us as well internally. We'll have to work through that. But.
Well, I will just say thank you for your work on this. I'm very excited to use board docs. I didn't know about the Meta feature, and I think that's really cool that we'll be able to look up other policies across the country. So I think that's, yeah. And I already added a note to add an addendum in the motion.
I should mention that that came up. So we typically have sent out anytime there's a change. So our board policy states that the agenda must be delivered 3 days prior to the meeting. We still will do that. Obviously, again, we're not changing our policy, but we will post it in here. The difference we have, like when there's a change in a consent agenda item, for example, Robert's rules is clear that the agenda isn't an agenda until the board approves it. So you can make changes up until the time the board approves it. It doesn't become official. So we won't send addendums out anymore. Districts that use board docs just work that change in. But because our policy states that we must send that to you in 3 days, we'll have a process, Trent and myself, to notify you and the public of anything that has changed since that posting date. But you won't get an official addendum from us like you did tonight.
Okay. So I actually did think of a question. So when we do our agenda prep meetings, will we be able to log in and see the agenda at that time?
Yeah.
Or when the board sees the draft, will we be able to log in as board members to see that draft?
We'll figure that out. I believe your access as an executive will be able to see draft agendas. Don't quote me on that, though. I intend to print and then send it to you as a draft format if you can't. But I believe, yes, logging in, you'll be able to see it. Now, it's going to be interesting on internally how we manage that, because we can create meetings and draft for the year, right? Like I assume as soon as we approve the organizational meeting, Jen will create a calendar and plug all those dates in. We can begin to put things 2, 4, 6 meetings out, draft to remind us. So it might get a little clunky with board members looking, and then later that item isn't there because we decided to take it down. So we've got to work together on that. But yes, I believe you'll be able to see it. We'll be able to see it in agenda prep and bring it up and go from there.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions? Or thank you for walking through this with us, and I think think we all look forward to using it. And our next item is second reading, Neola policy updates. Randy?
Yes, thank you. So last meeting, we brought forth 16 policies that were part of Neola's annual fall update. Since that time, we have not received any questions or feedback, and I believe later on the agenda, we will approve those policies tonight. So if there are no questions, I'll just wait until that point in the agenda.
So our next item is board committee reports and announcements. Does anybody want to start?
I can start. So as the library liaison, I just want to keep everyone informed that at our next meeting, they should have their 2023 trustee named to us. I will get you resumes of their top candidates and a little explanation about why. On the one that they chose, I know that they had 10 people apply to be a trustee this year, and they were very excited because that's more applications than they've had in a long time. They did a Zoom interview with all 10 of them, and then a personal interview with 4 of them, and I believe last night they were voting on their choice. So we should be, TJ, if you haven't gotten it yet, we should get their information within the next couple of days for our next meeting. And SPAC committee meets tomorrow, Thursday. Today's Wednesday. It's a little confusing. But we'll see Neil and Amy tomorrow for SPAC committee. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I don't mind going next. We had key communicators meetings directly after our last board meeting. I was joking with Trent before the meeting. It's because that was before the election, it almost seems like a lifetime ago. Yes. So I apologize that I didn't take copious notes, but what I can tell you was that was probably the main topic that we talked about, and that there wasn't really anything from a community standpoint that was a hot issue. So in good shape from there.
Anyone else? Charlie?
Okay. Sorry, I came here straight from the hospital, so I don't have my notes with me, but I did have notes. Yep. I attended the morning session of the key communicators, and I agree with what Nikki said. I don't think there's anything of great, I mean, it was a very good meeting, but of great public support. Secondly, Kelly and I attended the academic achievement meeting. Again, all this seems so far ago because it was, first of all, it's been a long time since our last meeting, but secondly, the levy's been in between. It was an excellent meeting, and then the following week I attended the Certified Staff Professional Learning Day, which was a great, and I just have to say publicly, we've had a lot of great keynote speakers, but in my opinion, at so many different levels, the one they had this year was truly, I mean, they've all been very, very good, but it was truly exceptional. It was Rabbi Rick Kellner, and it was phenomenal what he did, in my opinion. He didn't just come in and give an off-the-shelf speech or something he'd give to others. He read the full book and really knew the chapter, and actually knew chapters in the book that weren't assigned, and actually talking to teachers afterwards. He was so good that he encouraged them to read. It caused them to inspire them to want to read chapters that weren't directly assigned for the Professional Learning Day. But his review and summary of it, I thought, was phenomenal. And the fact he's a local person, a local parent, I think just added that much more. So that was good. And I had several takeaways from the day that really resonated with me. There were a ton of things I could have come up with, and I don't have my notes here, but the one I remember most is that the session, the day was about culturally responsive teaching or culturally responsive education. And the one I came away with is that all instruction is culturally responsive. The question is, to whose culture is it responsive? And as somebody who has spent the last 42 years of his life teaching, I do know that the first, I'd rather not say how long, but quite a few years that I was teaching, definitely I was responding to my culture, and by my culture, I mean I was somebody who loved law school, who did extremely well in law school, and couldn't understand why 90% of my students didn't relate that well to me, because that wasn't the experience they were having in law school. And once I figured that out, I became a much more effective teacher. And the second thing that I recall is it's so critically important in connection with this that we move our students from being dependent learners to being independent learners who have a lifelong love of learning and a very robust curiosity for life. And so it was a wonderful day. Talking to the teachers, I mean, there were many teachers there who've been teaching in our district for 25 or 30 years. I mean, there are a lot of teachers who taught my kids back in the 90s, and they were so inspired by the day. They said, you know, this is, but I do have one comment I must make, and that is, this was really good at the micro level, but I think we do need to really invest in making sure our buildings, you know, that we attack the systemic problem as well as the individual problem. But that's not intended as a criticism, just as there's always more work to be done. All right. I guess also in the interim, I went to the Crane Symposium for Children, which is the executive director who conducted that is one of our own residents, Laura Justice. And I don't have my notes here, but it was exceptional. Obviously, I went at least to the Ohio School Board Association Capital Conference. Many very, very good sessions there. And finally, I'll stop talking now. The Business After Hours, I thought, was a very good session, and so many community members who were as delighted. Some of them may be more delighted than I was that our levy had passed. It's just wonderfully that kind of support from the business community. That the business community said that was just critically important to them that passed, and so that was a good event too, and a good celebration. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else?
Just really briefly, I attended with you the internal key communicators group, which was really nice. It's always nice to hear back from educators and staff from our schools. So they talked Jeff came and talked a lot about technology issues that were happening in our buildings, and so that was really good to get an update and be able to get, I hope that it was good for Jeff to get updates from the educators that were in the room. And get some feedback from them so he could take that back to make things work more efficiently. You got some information about training and events coming up that were important to them, and a good update about our English learners and how there's just a lot more coming into our district. And so just giving an update on that. I also attended the AAPL meeting with Charlie, which is always, I'm telling you guys, I mean, if you ever want to substitute with me so you can go, I would arrange that for you. But, talking about their event that happened on the 8th, which was a wonderful day, right? But it's just always good to know how they prepare and just see the passion that our administrators have to make our teachers even better. So those were really good things. That's all I have.
Thank you. I don't know that I have everything's kind of been covered. Jennifer mentioned we have SPAC tomorrow. I also attended the OSBA Capital Conference, all 3 days actually. And I didn't know, I attended quite a few sessions. I didn't know if it would be helpful if I put into like a Google Drive the sessions that I attended, if anybody's interested in looking at them, just so you see. There's so many sessions there, I feel like maybe it would be helpful to know what each of us attended. And I'll just mention a couple that I found really good. One that was How Design Impacts Social Emotional Development. And one of the things I found really interesting in that was they talked about how building design impacts Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions and how that can help play into what we provide. And then also another one on the possibility of community partnerships. So I'd be happy to compile those. I've actually already compiled them, but put them in a file if anybody else wants to look at them. And they're just the presentations that are in that were on the OSBA app. So. And I think, and I attended Key Communicators with Kelly. Like you said, I kind of forgot about that until you started talking about it. And I was grateful to attend because as a substitute. So I think I would echo what Kelly said. It's nice. I know we all have our committee assignments, but I think it's really important that we make sure we continue to mix those up so that everybody gets to experience. And if there are opportunities to fill in for somebody, I think that's a great way to get to, for all of us to kind of experience all of them. So, all right, our next item is approval of minutes. And I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 24th, 2022 board meeting as indicated in enclosure C1A.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Our next item is Delaware Area Career Center Agreement. Can I have a motion to approve a second agreement addendum to the district's contract with Delaware Area Career Center dated January 13th, 2005 as amended February 23rd, 2009 to reflect changes in calculating per pupil service charges due to the enactment of new school funding formula by the state of Ohio.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion or is there anything you wanted to add on this, TJ?
I should have made that longer for you.
It was a lot.
So we have a contract with Delaware Career Center. We are not a property tax paying district as the 4 other districts that are a part of Delaware Career Center. So we enter into a contract, per pupil contract with them that basically has followed and mirrored the state funding formula. And as you're all aware, the state dramatically changed the funding formula. So this just keeps us in line with our current practice and updates us with that formula.
Okay. Are there any questions on that?
Can you remind us how many students we have go to the Career Center?
So this year we have a little over 200, what I would say, students bodies. A lot of those are part-time. On the last report I had, it was about 86 to 88, what they call full-time equivalent.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add that DAX programs run on a half-day program or a full-day program. So they have a morning session and afternoon session. Students can be a half-day student in one of those programs, or they can do their academics at DAC, and that makes them a full-day student. So.
Okay, and I think our enrollment there has increased over the past few years.
It's increased. I mean, the challenge really for DAC is Delaware County continues to grow, right? So they really don't have as much capacity as is going to be needed for the future. And you know, we obviously want to make sure that we can continue to secure seats for Worthington students. So.
Yeah, I will say, if you go back in history, the agreement does have a clause when it was formed that we would have a minimum of 5% of 11th and 12th graders enrolled, because that was part of the concern to let us in. We would need to have a minimum to make that programming work. We're nowhere close to that number anymore. So.
And they're not complaining about that?
No, I mean, the minimum's still in the clause, but yeah, they're not.
What's that?
The minimum guarantee is still in the clause.
Yeah, but they're not complaining that we're not
no.
meeting that contractual. So if I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so no student, because Mr. Cusick said that we have a little over 200 students there with FTEs of about 86 or 88. Does that mean no? You said it's either half day or a full day. Does that mean no student can have less than a 0.5 FTE?
Meaning like just go for one class or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
I mean, I don't know how you get to 8.
Yeah, I don't know
I'm
how
not
that,
questioning.
Yeah,
Not
so
trying to
it
put you on the
depends
spot.
on kids coming in and as kids move, our ADM is always an odd number.
Okay.
But it's based on the time a kid is in our district over 185 days. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I would defer to you on whether you can take one class or not.
no, you can't.
Okay.
So that's probably
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure exactly how the equivalents go, but our buses, let me say it this way, go for morning and afternoon routes or full day routes. Actually, they're increasing so much that this year we have an after school program, which may be contributing to it, where kids are going for 2 classes, which could be a 0.4 in that instance. It's for 1 program open this year. Next year, they're looking at 3 after school programs, just because space is an issue.
Any other comments or discussion? Right. Can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Hudson,
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. Our next item is our consent agenda, and is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, are they still C2A through C2E?
They are. That will change in board talks, but yes, for this tonight.
For this,
it's
I need to
still
say it just like
yes.
this.
Okay, yeah, that's why I'm
Yeah, it
a
was
little,
just-
because my language is a
Right,
little bit
that's what I
different
was-
than what's
okay.
on the printed version.
Okay, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, items C2A through C2H, including the addendum on the paper agenda. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent agenda means that all items listed under the consent agenda are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately. So again, the recommendation is items C2A through C2H, including potentially the last addendum ever.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, so now we're new business. Dr. Bowers.
I got lost on the agenda. Okay, so I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve item C3A, which is the acceptance of the donations that are listed on your agenda. Item C3A, please.
So moved. But that's not what's on there.
Did I miss something?
What?
I think it's just the difference between the board docs
I don't know.
and the paper.
Yeah, it may be. Can I?
So I just moved here. So it's acceptance of donations.
Yeah, so under our new business, we have here, we have construction packages. It's in a different order. So what, should we go off paper?
Yeah.
Since we went the last one paper, we should.
Okay, so, okay.
So the recommendation is item C3A, which is the acceptance of donations, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you please call for the vote?
I warned you it's going to be a little bumpy.
That's
Mr.
okay.
Wilson.
Throw it.
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item C3B. Item C3B is the tuition payment for all-day kindergarten for the 23-24 school year. The fee you see on the agenda represents no change to the current fee from this year. So item C3B, it's an approval of fee for next year as kindergarten registration has already begun.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll be voting no, but that's.
Anybody
I
else?
appreciate that there's no increase this year.
As well. Me as well.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
No.
Motion carries.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item C3C. This is a recommended motion to approve the Russilli guaranteed maximum price for the construction package 1 for the Thomas Worthington Fieldhouse construction as indicated in enclosure C3C. So this is just for the Fieldhouse project that was part of what we deemed part of phase 1 of the construction.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? No? Okay. Seeing none, can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item C3D. This is a recommended motion to designate the superintendent, director of business services, and treasurer authority to conduct business related to phase 2 construction projects, including change order authority as indicated in enclosure C3D. So this follows the process that we followed in phase 1 of our master facility plan, where the board will receive information when change orders have been approved. So you'll know what change orders that mostly Mr. Ebley has approved, but we're asking for the ability to make those in real time and then inform the board.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say that I think it worked really well in phase 1. I have to say that I was a little skeptical when we considered this 4 years ago, but I think it's worked very, very well.
Anything else? Please call for the vote.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Actions recommended by the Board of Education. I've moved back over to paper because, okay. Is everybody okay?
We'll get there.
I had a couple people are laughing. Okay, item D1A, policy approval. Can I have a motion to approve policy updates recommended by Neola as presented for a first reading at the October 22nd or 24th, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Requests, questions, and concerns from the board. Would anyone like to start?
I can start.
Okay.
So first, I want to say that I feel very fortunate to live in a community that is so supportive of our schools. So excited about the election, the levy support last week, and I really appreciate our community coming forward and voting to support our schools. I think it shows they have a lot of trust in us, and I think we need to work very hard as a board to show that we are good stewards of the taxpayer money. And if there's anything we can do as far as a performance audit, reviewing course offerings, whatever it takes to be sure we are as efficient and as good as stewards as possible, I would really appreciate that. And my second quick comment as we think about our calendar for next year already as we are, I think it's a little frustrating when we change our meeting nights for people to be sure they know when they can log in and see us. I think the community appreciates knowing that we meet the second and fourth Mondays of the month, and I am hoping that as long as those are school days and not holidays or days off school, that we can keep our meetings consistent. And that is all I have for now.
Would anyone else like to share?
Are you going to talk about the statement?
Yeah.
Okay. Then
yeah.
I'll wait for that.
Okay. Okay.
I guess, can I, this is not my time to share, but do we want to move to board docs completely to avoid the clunkiness at the next meeting?
Yes, I would support
Yes,
that.
I think that would be good.
Okay, we'll do.
Thanks, TJ.
And that means we won't have paper versions in front of us, right? We'll just access.
Certainly, and I can print a simple version.
I don't need to, I mean, that's the advantage, right? That's part of the advantage of, you know, killing less trees.
If you want one, just let me know.
Okay.
Is there anybody that wants one? Charlie, do you want a paper?
I wouldn't mind,
Okay.
especially if I can never log into board docs.
I mean, I'll print mine at home if I want it getting it by the time we come here, I've already looked at it and made my notes that I don't need it printed for me here.
I know you're good.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good
And
too.
you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you guys? Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay. It'll be fine.
It will be.
Think of all the trees. Okay.
Go ahead.
Anything else?
No, go ahead. I know.
Okay. Well, first thing, Jennifer, I just wanted to respond to your comment about our board meeting night. So I was on that thought process with keeping this week's meeting, moving it back to Monday. However, what I will share with you is that this past Monday, and Monday afternoon is typically when the delegate meeting is at OSBA, and that meeting went very long. And my concern is that, and that occurred last year, occurred this year. And my concern is whoever is our delegate next year, I just want to make sure that we're not creating a stressful situation to get back here to conduct our board meeting on Monday evening. So I think it's something we need to consider.
I don't feel like we've had that many board meetings not according to a historical schedule. So I don't think there's been a great deal of things outside of the norm. And so I think it's reasonable that circumstances are at times are going to require a change. As long as that's not going on a regular basis and the change becomes the norm, then I personally don't see it as an issue.
Yeah, and I think this week is hard for all of us for trying to attend OSBA, plus we have board meeting, plus this week we have work session, which I apologize for, and we have SPAC and other things, so it's a lot. But yeah, I just think I'm really worried after experiencing what I experienced on Monday that we would be creating a stressful situation for whoever wants to attend that delegate meeting in the event.
And yeah, last year and this year are probably the only times that meeting has been long. It's typically an hour and there's no comments, and I realize right now, because of the times and everything, it's been long.
Yeah, and that's been my understanding is that it
It's
hasn't
not
been
typical.
this case prior to last year. Okay. So I had sent an email, I think last week, to all of you with a little bit of an update to the visitor comment statement that we had previously discussed. And I don't know if anybody needs, I printed out a few copies.
I'll look at it. It's always nice.
If you wanted to have
I have
some printed copies.
On my desk.
Well, mine were almost sitting in my printer, and I quickly remembered before I left to grab them out of the printer. And I have to actually pull it up on my computer too. So basically, you can see in red the changes that were made by District Legal Counsel, where it says consistent with our policy 9130, and a few language changes that I don't think are very significant to what we had before, but are important to reference that policy language. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, comments. What I personally would like to see happen is, now that we have this feedback and these changes, to go ahead and move forward with adding this to our agenda for our next meeting. And
I support that.
Open to hearing other comments.
That's good. I'm glad you worked with the attorney on it, and we'll always take her recommendations.
Great.
Charlie, did it answer your question? You had the question for the attorney.
Yeah, and I did talk to her at the Capitol Conference, actually, at the Scott Scrivener breakfast. And her view is that under Sixth Circuit law, which Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky and Tennessee are all in the Sixth Circuit, that it's unlikely that an employee who is required to attend school board meetings would have a valid cause of action for hostile work environment. She understood that many circuits go the other direction, and the Supreme Court has not ruled on it, so one doesn't know. But that, she said, is what motivates her to a large degree on this, is that Sixth Circuit law, as she reads it, does not would not provide for such a cause of action by an employee administrator required to attend board meetings. She did, however, say that we do have the right and the authority under the law to cut off any speaker who is publicizing a matter that is supposed to be kept confidential, i.e. a personnel matter. And that's, so I'm still a little troubled. I realize this is her language, but that to me struck me as a little inconsistent with the language we ask that complaints about a particular employee be referred to the superintendent and not addressed during a public session. So I didn't see her comment as consistent. I mean, my preference, again, I would never, just like as Jennifer said, I would always follow counsel's advice, but if it's her position that this must say, what is the language here? We ask that rather than complaints about a particular employee, I would, should be referred to the superintendent and not addressed during a public session. I think that, frankly, would be more consistent with what her comments. I want to be fair to her, though. So far as I know, this was just an informal conversation that was a quid pro quo for a favor and a question she had of me, which I had answered earlier. And so I don't, there's no legal opinion. I don't think we were charged for that. This was at their social event. So I don't want to hold her to it, but I'm still a little troubled by we ask that complaints as opposed to complaint, which was the language I raised before. Complaint should not be. That's different than say cannot be, should not be, or should be. I'm sorry, should be referred to the superintendent and not addressed during a public session.
Every conversation I had with Julie was that it should be. You cannot stop them from complaining.
Right.
But what you said, if they're talking confidential matters, that's different than just a complaint about an employee. We could stop if they start talking about confidential information.
Who deems that's where
it gets tricky.
And under public records laws, all personnel matters are confidential.
Right.
So I guess if it's
the complaint itself,
I guess the question is whether it's, but I guess the question is whether it's personnel or not. Without knowing a specific situation. But I mean, I backed off the language which I had before was that there shall not be. It's that should be. It's not the same as saying we won't allow it, but I think it's a little stronger than we ask that.
Right. And I mean, that's what I had asked her, if there was language that we could say that was a little more than we asked.
And she said no.
Well, this is what she came back with.
Okay.
Yeah,
this was her response.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what she said to me too.
Okay.
You can't stop it.
And I mean, I think if we add this and then down the road want to make a change in language, we can do so. I mean, this isn't, but I think that this language is important for us to add.
Okay.
Overall. Are you okay with that? Or no?
The answer is no, but will I vote for it? The answer is yes.
Okay. What? I don't know.
And I like your suggestion that we could take it up with her at another time.
Yeah.
Because in fairness to her, I don't think she was getting paid. This was just kind of a
off the cuff,
pretty serious legal discussion.
Yeah.
But she had, she had asked me about something that took a while to talk about too.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, just to be clear, I mean, I didn't intend that this would be something we would necessarily vote on. It was just something that we wanted to come into common agreement with, that we could add this to our agenda so that this language could be placed.
Yeah, I won't object to that.
Okay. Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you. Other item I wanted to bring up was just about Dr. Bowers included a board calendar that I had been working on and had shared with him and Christy. And I just wanted to, I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at that. It's a board calendar for next calendar year. Just trying to project out all the things that we normally do throughout the year and events, and so that hopefully we can get a better handle on what all is happening without having to go back through meeting agendas. So I just wanted to ask if anybody has any comments about that and things you think we should add. I do actually have another draft of it that I've been adding things to. So just let me know.
Just bring them to the work session tomorrow.
Yeah,
maybe.
They can come to the work session tomorrow or whenever is fine.
And I think it's great, Amy. I appreciate your work on it. So, and I think it's a nice format that then the next year we can just update, not starting from scratch. So.
Right. And I was trying to get all, like, even the committees that we serve on and everything into one document so that we can access that in one place. And then I just wanted to say thank you to our technology department for our Chromebooks and for your work in getting us set up. I told them when I came in this evening that it was really helpful to have a designated Chromebook for when I was at OSBA this past week. So, because it's much lighter than my own personal computer and it was nice to carry around, and I did utilize it quite a bit, despite the fact that I couldn't connect to the internet. But I was able to pull up the documents that I needed. Couple of events that I wanted to mention. We all received an email about International Day, which is this Friday at Thomas Worthington High School during the lunch periods 3 through 5, which if anybody wants to attend, the time reference there is I think 10:25 a.m. to 12, correct me if I'm wrong, to 12:50 p.m. I do plan to attend. So I don't know if anybody else is able to. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was just, and this is for the public too, we have information that will be going out tomorrow, I believe, about a community meeting that will be upcoming regarding our high school designs. And it will be held on Thursday, December 1st at 6:30 p.m. And the meeting will be at Worthington Kilburn High School, I'm assuming in the auditorium. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware, that we get good attendance so that we can get good feedback on where we are in that process. And I also just wanted to say, Jennifer, I appreciate your comments earlier about the levy and bond issue and thanking the community for that. So does anybody have anything else? Okay, I think I covered everything that I had. Have to switch back to one moment, please. Okay. All right. So looking ahead at our calendar, tomorrow we have our work session starting at 9 a.m. here at the WEC in this room. We'll be discussing a board handbook and board self-assessment. And then our next regular meeting is on Monday, November 28th at 7:30 p.m. And then 2 weeks later, followed by our December 12th meeting, also at 7:30 p.m. here at the WEC. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Can you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hello, I'm Randy Banks, Assistant Superintendent of Worthington Schools. Last year, our Community Task Force recommended that we address our 2 comprehensive high schools in Phase 2 of our Master Facilities Plan. In November, our community approved the funding for both of these projects. We are now inviting you to join us on December 1st at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium at Worthington Kilbourne High School, where we will share some initial concepts and possible designs for both buildings. We are hopeful that you will assist us in designing buildings that honor our rich history, yet meet the needs of our students in the future. We look forward to seeing you there on the 1st. Thank you.